Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Scream Scene. I'm Jody Dean. Today, I am talking to a gentleman that has made a huge mark in the film world. He's got a film out there that I seen last week, and I was buzzing about it, man. It's called The Mean One. It's a take on the Grinch in a horror form. Just imagine the Grinch as a slasher. Really great film, but he's also done a lot of other great stuff. Bury Me Twice, The Mean One, and the word is he's doing Steamboat Willie. So we're gonna get to that. But first, welcome Stephen Lamorte. What's going on, buddy?
Not too much, man. Not too much. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. You got some great stuff out there, brother. But before we get into that, where are you from and what got you into making films?
Yeah, well, I'm originally from New York City, and maybe it's because I'm an only child, or I just love being the center of attention. But I've always loved entertaining people, and with stage play or stand-up comedy, you can only reach the people in the room, which is cool. But I always felt like I wanted to make lots of people laugh or jump or scream, and so naturally that just sort of draw me to making movies. And ironically, the more we're like using the digital stuff with streaming and you know redubbing and email and all that nonsense, the more post-pandemic we're going back to, yeah, we're making movies, but we're making movies to be seen in the theater, right? To be seen with a group and stuff. So now I'm back to like entertaining audiences, but now it's in a theater, and we're still able to go around the world, which is awesome.
That is very awesome. Is horror something that's always been in the vein there, or is that something that you just decided to explore later on, or are you just, hey, if it's a good script, you're all about it, let's do it, or is that something that you've wanted to do for a long time?
I actually didn't realize I was a horror fan when I first started making movies. All the stuff that my favorite films and some of my favorite directors, all of the things that I was drawn to. Of course, you need a good story. Of course, you need great characters. But it wasn't until I started sort of delving into, well, what were my favorite scenes to shoot or what were my favorite scenes to read, that I realized I was a horror fan. All my favorite scenes in sort of these classic action adventure movies were the horror scenes, right? Like you think of Jurassic Park, you think of Terminator, like, oh, those are some of my favorite films. And it's like, what are my favorite scenes? Oh, those are horror. I'm a horror fan. So I kind of fell backwards into it because, I think a lot of people have this assumption that horror is just 80s slashers. And it's just so much more than that. There's
Right.
possession films, there's comedies, there's, creature features, there's all different things that sort of make up the rich mosaic of horror films. And once I started really delving into it, I realized, oh, I've secretly been a horror fan my whole life. I just had no idea. So now I'm playing catch up. And the last couple of movies I've made have all been in that vein because it's a
Right.
late in life love.
I was gonna ask, is this a realm that you're gonna keep diving deeper into? Or are you looking ahead right now in the future saying, man, I want to do this, I want to do that? Are we gonna see a lot more horror coming from you beyond the Mean One and possibly Steamboat Willie?
Yes, indeed, there are. It's funny. I get sent a lot of scripts and have a lot of ideas, but I always end up drifting into this territory. I mean, my secret dream has always been to design rides or haunted houses and stuff. So every movie that I find myself drawn towards now are all these, big sort of thrilling event-sized things. So yeah, there'll be more horror for me in the future for sure.
That's awesome, man. I own a haunted house attraction, and I also am a filmmaker and into the same stuff, and it's all connected in some way, shape, or form. It seems. So you've done Bury Me Twice, The Mean One, and a bunch of other things I was looking at. What made you want to touch the vein of horror? And it looks like we can expect something from you moving forward here, obviously with the Steamboat Willie.
Um, well, it's I think it's kind of interesting because when you're an independent filmmaker, we're not a big, we don't do big, huge studio movies, not yet anyway.
Mhm.
But I do think there's a world in which now, because of the internet, you don't need a massive marketing budget. You don't need a huge production budget, even to be able to sort of tell your story and try to connect with audiences. If the idea is really cool, and people like dig your tone and your vibe and the sort of the things you create, you can reach them. I don't have to sell a CD out of the trunk of my car, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of these things that I've been doing the last couple of years have really been started on the premise of, okay, if we don't have a massive marketing budget, but we have a cool idea and a fun way to execute it, something that's maybe a little different than what's out there right now. Let's put it out there and see what people think. And the more, people seem to respond to the kind of things that me and, my collaborators make, the more it drives us to do more and to keep creating. So, as long as people keep buying tickets, we just we'll keep making them.
And is that really a focus, for a lot of independent filmmakers? We never have the dream of seeing it on the screen. It's straight to DVD. It's going to streaming services. It is the theater route something you want to stay? You want to stay in that, that arena right there where you're seeing these films that you're making on the screen, even if they don't have these huge budgets or anything like that?
Definitely. I mean, it's, there was a time where I think in the convenience of, especially during the pandemic, the convenience of, Dune dropped on Max at the exact same time it's available in the theaters, and people were worried about going to theaters. Like, I totally get it. It's, why would I leave my house if I can just hit a button? If it's something I was on the fence about. But we're seeing more and more now that, like, IMAX screenings of Oppenheimer, which is a character-driven drama. It's not there's no big explosions except for one. Spoilers. Like, you're seeing these big event films that people are saying, no, I want to sit next to somebody. I want to go and watch this with a group. I want to laugh together. I mean, it's weird watching a horror movie by yourself in the house. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun's up, and Michael Myers is running around. You feel like strange, but you go to see Terrifier 2 in a theater with a bunch of other people who know what they're getting into, and we're all laughing and cheering, and it's just a different kind of experience. And being in the room with people watching The Mean One when it was meant to be a streaming film, it was meant to be a web movie. I mean, it was made small. Yeah, it was made small. We shot it in May, and we finished it in December, and found that it was going to be in theaters because it kind of went viral.
Wow.
And we're like, wow, this is crazy. I never thought I'd screen it, other than at festivals or with with the cast and crew. And then I figured it would just go and live online like the rest. And to be in the room with audiences, I traveled around the country. I was in New York, and I was in LA, and I was in Seattle and Georgia. Like, I just went to a bunch of different screenings. A lot of times I didn't even know I was going to be there. To be sitting in the back of the room, hearing people laughing at the jokes that I wrote, and seeing silly stuff that was like, there's a goat in the movie. You've seen it. There's a goat in the movie that was like just a 1 in a million chance that we were able to have this goat in the film. Nobody else knows that the goat is a thing. But for me, like, the goat moment in the movie is just crazy. And to be in a room with people laughing at this ridiculous goat that we have no business having in our movie, I'm like, I've been chasing that high ever since. So yeah, we'll be making more theater movies for sure.
That is crazy to not expect it and to see that happen. But I think anybody that's seen the first ever idea of this out in the wild, online, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you've seen it, when I first seen like a poster or something of it that it was happening, I got really excited. I was like, whoa, I seen that happen with everybody. It was almost like you knew you had a hit song before you even recorded it. Did you think that this, might happen? It seemed like you could bet that this film was going to do okay.
You never really know if what people are going to connect to, what they're going to like, what they're going to gravitate towards. There are jokes in the movie I still don't find funny that always get a laugh when I'm in the room and people are people are watching it. So, we can't know what an audience is going to connect with. I had kind of an inkling because when I pitched the movie, I've had this idea for easily 5 years. Anytime you go into a pitch meeting, it might even be 10 now that I think about it. Because every time you go into a pitch meeting, you have the main thing you're trying to pitch, you have a backup, and you hope to God they don't ask if you have anything else. You need to be able to, like, on the fly, just be like, what if it was the killer, the hat? Maybe.
Yeah.
My third thing was always The Mean One, just lurking in the background. What if this character was was like a slasher, like a Bigfoot monster kind of movie. And anytime I pitched it, people always thought it was a good idea, but it was always like, wow, that's funny. I do you have more than like a one paragraph explanation of what this would be like? Is there a whole movie here? And so as we're on set and we're filming, and our first day with David in the makeup on set, performing the character, and we called cut, and it was a simple scene. He crawls out of the fireplace, he gets up, he waves his hands together, and then he dances off the screen. Very, very simple scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been shooting without him all of the other scenes, I think for about a week at that point. And the first time, not only he emerged with the makeup and he's just walking around, but the first time he was in character, and he stood up and he did his little laugh and scurried away. Everybody just started clapping once I called cut, and we were like, and I don't know if he thought we were doing that for his ego, but everyone was just like, man, this is awesome. I would like to see a whole movie of this. And that's when
Yeah.
we started to have inkling that maybe this thing was bigger than we had intended.
There was some magicalness there for sure.
Mm.
Seeing horror films, I'm assuming throughout your life, you've seen them, whether you were a huge horror fan or not. Seeing them and then being on set making them is crazy. Seeing how it all actually comes together, with the special effects and that little cut you got to have there to sell that somebody just had their head slammed down on a pen or something there. Was that different for you, or did you just expect that being in the film business?
Well, I've been doing sort of action and stunt oriented projects for a long time. It's some of my earliest work has been even second unit directing stunt sequences, or even doing music videos with a lot of dancing. And choreography is choreography, right? And any when it comes to like punches and hits and falls, it's all trickery, right? We're not really hitting anybody. No one's really getting hurt. They're not trying. The actors aren't trying to help each other. It's a choreographed dance. So a lot of what we do in horror is very similar, because there are stunts, there are blood gags or makeup gags. The difference is that what was sort of the adjustment is that when you start doing like the blood stuff, it takes a lot longer to reset. Once blood sprays everywhere, you have gravity at your disposal. Like with a punch, I work with some amazing stunt performers. They can swing a punch and make it look like they hit you in the exact same spot 10 times out of 10, no problem. Make it go down and make it seem like they're dead and have everyone be worried. Oh my God, did we kill this person? No problem. They can, repeat it and keep doing it. No matter how dangerous, they'll just keep going. But with the blood stuff, it takes so much more setup and so much more like designing of the angle. If you're working with a puppet or like a fake hand or a prosthetic, like it only looks good from here, and it can only do this and it can only do that. But then when you capture it, making in-camera effects, once you get it and you've seen it on the screen, you're like, oh man, this is not repeatable. I don't know if with gravity or the pressure of the pump or the way the light hit the fake skin, whatever it is, it all comes together. It really is a magic trick. It's super cool.
It really is, man. Once you add that color grading in there and that clean cut and sew it all up, it is pretty amazing. I absolutely love it. And I thought there was a lot of great gore horror moments in the mean one. And it's just a really, really good film, beginning to end. I really enjoyed it. Super, super horror fan over here. Just every single day of my life, I watch them, I produce them, I make them myself. So when I seen this, I said, "Wow, this is one to be proud of." I feel like it's on a buzz. Like it's still one of those films. I just talked to some buddies and they were like, dude, I got to watch that. I'm still hearing people say, I want to see that. They know it's out there, man, but it's still kind of getting in front of people's faces, even though it's had the theater moment now. Right. So like, what's that been like for you, man? Like, not a lot of films do that. They come out, they have their moment, and either they're a classic or they kind of, enjoy shelf life. Right.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a big difference between a movie that's made, or even a streaming show that's made as like content, that is part of an ongoing story, or is so open ended. It's clearly just like the middle. I mean, it's the only thing I didn't like about the first Dune was that it ended at the middle of the story. I'm like, oh, this was just getting good. And I'm glad that they did it because the two parts together are amazing, but it does leave the audience wanting more, and depending on what you're into, maybe not in a good way. And something that was really important to me with the Mean One was we weren't trying to set up a franchise. We weren't trying to, I wanted to incorporate a lot of different elements, but we wanted it to be like a complete story, something that you could watch with watch with your significant other, or you're on a Saturday night, or and once you've seen it, maybe you watch it again to catch the Dr. Seuss references, or maybe you're making cookies, or whatever it is during the holidays, and hopefully it's got some rewatch value, because it's just like a standalone experience, and it's been super awesome to see people, like, the movie, it's been out. It was in theaters, then it was in theaters around the world, which was crazy, dubbed in a whole bunch of different languages, which is nuts. And now it's on Stars. It just dropped. It debuted Monday. By Tuesday, it was on their most popular list, and by Wednesday, it was in the top 10. And as of yesterday, I think it dropped to 8, and
I've
now
seen that.
I think we're at 6 now or something, which is
Yeah.
wild. The weekend's not even here yet, and we're like, oh my goodness. The people are still into it. It's a Christmas movie. They like.
Well, that's also what you get with horror, right? Like, horror is such a different genre that people out here, when they use the term cult following, it's they hit so different. The horror fans do, man. They will carry this thing on forever. This thing could turn into a toy. It could turn into a video game. There's just no ending to what can happen with something like this. If it has success, it's like the sky is the limit. It's hard to get a movie in a theater, isn't it? I mean, it's for you not to even be shooting in that direction and it just happened. That's not an easy thing to do, right?
No, it's not. I mean, nowadays, well, it's always been difficult to get the right theaters, or get a distributor that sees the vision and understands the movie, understands what you're going for, and sees a vision that people will leave their house to go and see this thing. And we were very fortunate that the first image came out and people seemed to respond to it and really connected with it. It got shared all over the internet, and I was adamant that we keep the whole thing under wraps. We're a tiny team, not more than 13 or 14 people on set at any given time, running around the woods in Los Angeles, shooting with my friends. And I said one thing. I said, please just don't, no pictures of the monster on social media. That's all I ask, because it's it's a suit, and in a cell phone picture, brightly lit, it's not going to do the creature justice. So, this one thing, we were really good. No one leaked it or really talked about the movie. And then once it dropped, the whole world kind of lit up and was interested in it. We were able to kind of connect with different distributors and different potential partners, and they saw more potential than even we were thinking. It seemed to work out, because we were in theaters for Christmas. I think it was December 8th of 2022. We were only supposed to be in theaters for one weekend. That's all they would promise us. And they're like, if people are going to go see it, they'll see it that first weekend. Then Avatar is going to come out, and see you later. You'll be gone. And we're like, okay, great. What a weekend we'll have. And then it got extended. Even though Avatar was still in theaters, our movie was playing in theaters in screens next to Avatar. Crazy. And then it got extended again. And then it got extended again. It was in theaters for like 5 weeks all over the country.
Incredible.
It was wild. And then a year later, they said, okay, we want to put it back in theaters around the world. And now it's in like 10 times as many theaters as it was in Christmas of 22. So in 2023, it was in like 1,000 theaters, all like dubbed in all these languages. And we're like, this is pretty wild for 14 friends running around the woods.
Yeah.
So it's been a total dream.
That's amazing and very inspirational. And you're an award-winning director and producer, but I imagine when you have success with things like this, that a lot more people come knocking at your door. I mean, I don't sense that there's any hunger for any work. I'm sure you got your hands full, but there is something that happens when you have things like this that blows up, where people are like, other words, anybody step in here and say, hey, Steve, what do you want to remake, buddy?
Yes, yes. The short answer is yes. There have been some really amazing people reach out, and it's great to connect with new partners, and I'd love to have more resources and be able to do sort of bigger and better things, or not better, excuse me, bigger and more ambitious projects. But something I keep going back to is that the system that exists, for the studio system for making movies, is kind of its own sort of beast. It moves at its own pace. They've got focus groups. They've got, shareholders. They're, trying to build a schedule of tent poles, and, their priorities are just so much grander. It's a lot more challenging, I think, to be able to say, well, I have one good idea. I think we should make this tiny thing. Please leave me alone and let me go do it.
Mhm.
And so that's been kind of interesting. Is on one side, it's great to have, different potential partners come on and call. And I've taken some crazy meetings that have blown my mind where I'm like, why? You sure you got the right guy?
Yeah.
But then, it does mean that I can go to smaller companies or mid-sized companies and say, hey, I want to do just one. It's a modest idea, bigger than the last thing. And I'd like to be left alone to do it the way that me and my team want to do it. And they have more leverage to say, okay, yeah, let's try that out, because now, we have something that we've done before. We can point to it. And that's been really cool because, I don't need to make a big, massive movie next. I mean, I will, but
Yeah.
my next film doesn't need to be gargantuan. We just want, some more resources to sort of go bigger and just make a more ambitious film. And doing the meme one has sort of given us the ability to do that. And it's been really, really fun, because some challenges that as an indie filmmaker, I remember having even 2 years ago where, well, we want to see the script. We want to see this. Can you change that? I've had this ending for a movie that I was directing changed by the producers the night before I had to shoot it. And I'm like, oh, storyboards and shot lists and scripts. And I'm like, wait, they handed me the new pages, like, this is the new ending for your movie. And I was like, I could have sworn I was the director. What a
Yeah.
strange experience. And now, I have a little bit more leverage, thanks to the hard work of the amazing people that I work with and all the awesome fans that have watched the film and, supported us. So when I get a little bit of pushback, I can say no, and they're like, oh yeah, that's probably fine. Maybe I'm the a-hole. That's fine. You don't have to send me, So
Yeah.
that's been really cool, because I think, everyone has a voice and has a vision, and there's some art that only you can make, right? That
Right.
is your thing. And the more people that sort of chime in who are not on the same wavelength or who aren't going to amplify and improve on that, it starts to muddy the water, and you get these especially movies, but you get these projects that feel like they were made for no one because they were made
Mhm.
for everyone. And so sometimes you just got to be left alone to do your thing, and people connect with it. That's reason enough for it to exist.
Yeah, it's awesome to be the own cook of your own kitchen, and you, as you kind of stated here, and all us independent filmmakers that we know, it's easier nowadays to make things happen than it's ever been with the tools that are available. Good editing, inexpensive cameras, stuff of that nature. You got a good script, you got people that care about what they're doing. You bring them all together. You never know. It's really about throwing it out there and seeing how it's received. And obviously, your independent, stuff's received now bigly, we could use that word
Mm-hmm.
there,
Yeah.
to where if you can do that, that's awesome to stay. Too many brains in one head, man, especially when it comes to making a movie. I've always wondered, like, when I see those sets with like 50 people on one set, I'm like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that's not attractive to me. I like the simplicity there. You said 13 people. That seems like a lot, but when you look at the production, those are actors and just, help, but I mean, you yourself, you do a lot of you not only write, but you've done filming. I've seen you work with the camera and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You've had your hands in
Yeah.
all of this, right?
I do. Yes, I do a lot of my own VFX. I still shoot. I'm going to shoot test footage today. The DP's in New York, so I'm just going to shoot it myself. I shoot my wife's self tapes. Like I like to get my hands dirty. That's where I started. Is as a filmmaker. And something that I've noticed on this new project that we're working on, is the communication is so key, right?
Mhm.
And the more you branch out, the more opinions and opportunity you bring in, because no one guy can build all of the laser guns, right? He needs a team, and they need painters, and then they need modelers and molders, and you need the artist. But how much art do you have to make? Well, maybe you need 5 artists that are just drawing. So, I do think there's a world for larger scale
Mhm.
filmmaking. You want to do a wire pull, it's not just the guy on the wires, it's the 2 guys that are pulling him, and it's the set
Right.
medic to make sure that if something goes wrong, he's safe. So I get how these movies scale up, but I do
Yeah.
think there's a balance, because the bigger it gets, the more it's like, okay, we have to move all of those cars. Well, now there's 50 cars, right? Versus when there were 2, we can run around the woods and with 10 people in 2 cars, get to some amazing locations, film, get back in the car and drive away before anyone knows we're there.
Yeah.
is very different than when the circus comes to town and we've got trailers and trucks, and it's just a different style of filmmaking. And if you're okay being a little uncomfortable, I encourage people to get out there and get reckless. Take a
Yeah.
small team and make it happen.
Yeah, if you're going to put a helicopter in your script, you're going to have to find somebody to fly it. So,
Mm-hmm.
which I would never do. I'd never put a helicopter in a script if I don't have one. Let's talk about Steamboat Willie. I don't know if you can talk about Steamboat. Is that
Mm-hmm.
happening, and what can we expect from the mischievous mouse that becomes a terror in New York City?
I cannot say too much.
Okay.
I can say we're deep in pre-production. So I'm doing all my storyboards and, getting the team together. We're casting. We're working on how we're going to do all of the crazy horror visuals. And I'm just so fortunate that I'm bringing a lot of the team that made the Mean One back, but we're also leveling up everything across the board. Between we do have a larger crew. I hate to say it, but between the cinema ready cameras and amazing locations and just the artistry that's going into it, because I love practical filmmaking. I love VFX. There's some things there's no way you could do without visual effects,
Mhm.
but sort of watching the art and the technology sort of combine, where I can have an artist who's doing a design, you could imagine, of what in a digital way, and
Mhm.
kind of building this crazy thing, but then they hand it to a whole team and they're building the physical element of it, and being able to go to a shop and see the clay and smell the molds and watch them sort of scanning these things. And now there's a digital version of the physical thing that they made, and you can see the sculptor's fingerprints on it. It's been just incredible, because there's a real love and passion and art that goes into something you can see and touch and feel. So we're really excited to be moving forward with the project, and it's going to be my biggest film yet for sure. And I think we're going to really surprise some people, because we're cooking up something cool.
Well, that film right there it's done the same thing that the Mean One did. Like I said, that first piece of promotion came out there,
Mm-hmm.
people lost their minds. Oh my God, we're getting a horror Grinch film, right? People seen the Steamboat thing, and they kind of like the same effect happened, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you've got. I know you're a busy guy, but you're picking up on this, right? Like you're hearing some of the feedback.
It's true. It's true. We did not, we kind of just wanted to call dibs on the idea when the first thing kind of came out. I did not expect to have to go on a worldwide press offensive to answer questions about a movie that we hadn't shot yet. So it's been cool. It's been really fun. And, it's this whole idea of like ruining people's childhood. I get more people asking me if I'm getting hate mail than the actual hate mail I get. People dig the idea. They like fun movies. They understand that I'm not actually, I like to believe they think I'm not an actual serial killer or crazy person. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm crazy, but not for that reason. And I think that it's just been great to see people are excited to see what we're going to come up with. And, something I've been telling the team, because normally you're casting or you're bringing crew on and you're like, oh, what if they had the killer hat? And they're like, yeah, whatever, it's a job. But this time around, because there's sort of some energy behind the film before we've started shooting, people are able to look it up. And they're like, oh, this is that movie? And we're like, yeah, this is that movie. And I'm like, I heard about that. It was on the radio. I saw it in like whatever. And so I just have to keep sort of reminding the team, like, look, we owe the audience an experience. They're expecting something big and fun.
Yeah.
They love this character. And, if we make a bad movie, it's my belief that a lot of people are going to see it. But if we make a great movie, the sky's the limit,
Yeah.
because this thing's going to play all around the world. So we all have to step our game up. So everyone is like, I'm like, just imagine imagine a room full of people watching this thing. Are we delivering what they'd expect from a Steamboat Willie horror film? And everyone is like so game, and they're like, we're going to bring it. And the things that I've seen these artists create, I'm so blessed to have them. And our team is awesome. And I think people are not ready for the scale of what we're up to.
They're not ready for what's to come. That's awesome, man. I can't wait to see it, support it. Maybe you've already answered this, but what's been the biggest highlight in your film career?
The biggest highlight in my film career.
That moment that you're just super proud of and accomplished, and it's maybe like your go-to.
Mm-hmm. think the moment I'm most proud of, oh, that's a good question. Well, on set, I think it would probably be filming the SantaCon sequence in the mean one, because we could only afford to have the location for one day. And I know lots and lots of stunt people. So I called in every stunt guy I know, every favor I had. I said, look, we're doing this crazy monster movie, and you're going to be dressed like a Santa. And I promise if you show up, I'll kill you and it'll be cool. Please come through and do it. And we have these beautiful storyboards, and this crazy shot list and what's in the script, and I know kind of what everyone can do because I've seen these people do these stunts on the dance floor at my wedding, so I have a good sense of what everyone's capable of. And we're just taking every 2 weeks till we're shooting the SantaCon scene. Man, this is ambitious. I hope we can pull it off. And then 1 week to the SantaCon scene. Man, there's a lot of Santas, and now we have lady Santas. Okay. Then we get 3 days out. Hey, you have to do all the driving stuff with them that day too. 2 days before. Hey, man, just so you know, they're not going to let us come back. So we have to get it all in one day. You get what you get. And we're all like, okay, fine. And we get to the set and we start shooting. And we all go into it, not pessimistically, but cautiously defensive, right? We're like, okay, this is a big day. We're going to get what we get. We'll be very happy if we walk out of here after 12 hours and everything that we shot was cool, even if we don't get everything. And so everyone's like, okay, great, but let's all work together. And the stunt guys are moving the mats around for each other, and everyone is like very, very focused and like, we've got it in 2 takes, let's move on. Like they're rehearsing outside, and the whole crew is just buzzing and gelling because we're 2/3 halfway through the day. And the AD leans in and she goes, Steve, I think we're on schedule, but don't tell anybody. And everyone's just like, no, we're all just working, we're gonna do it. We're all kind of rowing together in the same direction at the same pace. And we get to the end of the day, and I said, okay, and what's the next shot? And the AD's like, dude, that was it. That was the last one. I was like, really? And I'm flipping through, and everyone is silently looking at me like, what's next? Come on, we got like 30 more minutes. What's next? And I'm like, guys, that's it. We did it. We shot every single thing, that whole sequence, one day. And we all just like, the door shut behind us at the 13th hour and they locked it. We gave the site back, and everyone kind of looked around and we're like, holy shit, we pulled this thing off. And
it's an amazing feeling.
It was the best feeling. And to have it be a showstopper in the movie and know like what went into it and that we pulled it off in just one day, and to see all these people coming together and gelling and believing in something, that something small could be something big is really special.
That was the moment, man. That's awesome. I know you got some stuff to do, man. So I'm going to just ask you one more question here, and we appreciate your time, of course. Is there a horror franchise, and maybe you're doing this right now? Is there a horror franchise you've dreamed about taking a swing at for a remake or directing for? And I know that you said that horror, you kind of came to it, you'd been seeing it, been doing it, never really made the connection until later on, like, hey, like, all right, yo, I'm putting my foot in this and I'm just going to jump in it. But is there something along the way you've seen, like maybe a Halloween or a Friday 13th that you were saying, if I ever get the chance, man, that's the one I'm taking?
You're going to kill me. I could not hear any of that. My headphones literally just died. My headphone just died. So if you could give it to me in short, I can hear you now. Give it to me in short. I will answer it. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Mistakes happen. That's how I got here, guys. Listen, don't judge the technical difficulties. Steve, I just said if there was a horror franchise that you haven't done yet, something that you would like to remake or direct in the future, anything crazy, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, anything I didn't say.
Oh boy. That's a good question. Wow, something I would love to redo. For the longest time, it was Chucky, because I have, I love small monster puppet movies. But I think if I was to do a like sort of remake, re-envision sort of a classic thing, it would be the Wolfman for sure. Ooh, because there's just something about like werewolves, and you have like creature effects, and you have transformation, and you have horror, but you also have action. Like, oh man, I've always wanted to make a either a wolfman or like a lichen, like werewolf movie. Just something about like hordes. You start with one, and then you start introducing like when it bites people, then it it starts spreading, and you could have multiple wolves, and they're big and they're mean and they're scary, and like American Werewolf in London is just like the pinnacle. Dog soldiers, right? I love crazy awesome werewolf movies, and every once in a while I like price out, what if someone was to build me a lichen, and we could get something 6 feet tall, and then everyone's like, you're crazy, please stop. But yeah, definitely werewolves for sure.
Awesome. Well, Steve, I know your time is precious. You got stuff going on. Just hold on here for 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, you can check him out on Instagram. You can just go down the rabbit hole. He's on IMDb and take it from there. Steven Lamorte. This gentleman has some great films out there. Check them out if you haven't already. I'm sure you have. If you haven't seen The Mean One, go see it. This is Scream Scene. I'm Jody Dean. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, sweet nightmares.